Hi, my name is Juana Gallegos, and today I'm going to be talking about Chapter 14 and Chapter 17 for the reading reflection. Chapter 14 is about students with physical disabilities and other health impairments. In this chapter, it mainly talks about how physical disabilities affect students' function of the brain and affects their balance, posture, and motor activities. This also refers to how it's content about malformation. So within these physical disabilities, there are two more common ones, and they are cerebral palsy and spina bifida. Cerebral palsy talks about how it affects the student's function of the brain and or development. And spina bifida is mainly about the malformation of the spinal cord. Other health impairments in this chapter mentioned are epilepsy and asthma. Epilepsy talks about recurring and being unprovoked seizures, and asthma is about chronic lung condition. With epilepsy, I've learned that these students it's really important to have like a health plan because of their condition, that staff and teachers must be aware that these students have a health plan in order to help them have a more safe and more a smooth process for them to handle with their seizures. And so moving forward with how to evaluate these students, neurologists basically evaluate the physical examination of the student. Within the school district, there are occupational therapists that help the students with their physical mobility. Parents are very important to consider in the evaluation process because we want to know how the student is at home. Within the school functional assessment, they develop more of the motor functioning skills of the student. And within the medical evaluation, that consists of those neurologists or therapists that will see if the student has other health impairments. Within my experiences, it's really important to communicate and train with paraprofessionals how the students affect their physical health impairments. Because I feel that many of the times these staff and paraprofessionals aren't really aware of what the student may have, and therefore aren't really won't be well trained to help these students in the need of time. So I think, as within my experiences, I have dealt with not knowing really what the student has, and then having these incidents that scare staff because we don't really know what's going on with the students. So I think it's really important that we train our employees as well as teachers. And within the inclusion opportunities, the chapter specifies that there should be more opportunities for these students in the general educational setting. But unfortunately, what I have seen personally within my job is that they don't really have a lot of opportunities for these students to be in inclusion setting. They do have specific special educational classrooms assigned to them, but they mainly are not included with other students. And with this chapter, the metacognition I took from this chapter is how to educate these students with physical disabilities. And one of the main parts is to have cooperative learning for these students. So having these students have time to communicate and socialize with other students that are in a general educational setting will benefit greatly for them. It also helps to for them to have more peer communication because it helps them evolve socially, and they also create more friends and relationships with that. Other accommodations for these students is very important. Like for say that students with that use a wheelchair will definitely more accommodations, as well as students that struggle with cutting. They will also need more adaptive scissors or adaptive tools for them to accommodate their needs. And most importantly, having interdependent skills for these students and help them develop these skills are most important because the goal for these students is to have a more a life full of independent and their goals being met. Following this, within chapter 17, let me just move it slightly. Go. Chapter 17, it talks about students who are gifted and talented. And in the website, or in Google, I should say, I found this quote that said, "Every child is gifted. They're just unwrap their packages at different times." So I feel that students that are gifted and talented are unfortunately being underrepresented because they feel that most people feel that since they are very smart that they do not have needs, but they do, because at times, even though they are very smart, they are also very isolated at times. What consists of a child that is gifted and talented is that they have high cognitive abilities, they have high general intellect, and they are really high creativity. Some of the causes for these students with their gifts and talents is that it could be biological, so they process information rapidly, and it's due to their activity in the brain that allows them to process this information quickly. Other component is environmental, so family practices is mainly seen here. So it's when more family members have high expectations for the students, is when they also see that these students are very gifted and talented. With evaluating a student, I just move it. Sorry, it's kind of a little slow. Okay. Evaluating these students, in the chapter talks about a method called discovering intellectual strengths and capabilities through observation while allowing for varied ethnic responses. Basically talks about how this model assesses and focuses on the curriculum that is based on problem solving within multiple domains of intelligence. So this is one way they would evaluate such students. Within my experiences, I took personal experience into consideration, where I know a boy that is in my mother's daycare, and this boy is very talented and very smart. And what I have learned is that the parents are concerned, because at the moment he's 4 years old. They are concerned that when he enters school, that he might get bored easily, or that the school might regress his current knowledge, or not expand his knowledge as they would like for him. So these type of complications do go into consideration of the parents of these type of students. And like I said, their worry is that their child might get bored, and that from getting bored, the behaviors may arise, or that there will be regress in their current knowledge. So that's something unfortunate, but maybe I think as teachers and educators, we must consider not regressing the child and building more opportunities for these children. Within the inclusion, these students are generally already in a general educational classroom, but within the inclusion, teachers must focus on providing enrichment curricular for these students, and for all students, I believe. They must also provide challenging content and provide more opportunities for them to think critical thinkers. And also in this chapter, metacognition, that I learned is the importance of having these students develop these students' creativity and critical thinking, as I mentioned, and having always high expectations. But for me, I think it's always important to have high expectations for all students, and that these students have instructional materials in a variety of formats. So per se, that they are being given the options to present their work differently, that they're given the options to use different resources just to expand that creativity. I think is very, very important for these students. But overall, this is the most important part that I learned from these chapters, and thank you so much for listening.